So yesterday I was talking about stage one, right? About requirement gathering, how to prepare, how to gather the requirements from BRD and DSD documents, how to gather production stats, and based on that, how to collect NFRs. Okay, I was talking about this performance testing life cycle. For developers, we have software development life cycle. For testers, you have software testing life cycle. Performance testing, we have performance testing life cycle. Part of that, we have 6 stages. First stage is requirement gathering. Second stage is test plan or test strategy. Third stage is performance design. Fourth stage is performance test execution. Next, analysis. Finally, recommendations and benchmarks. So in first stage, what we will do is we'll gather something called non-functional requirements. What are functional requirements? Functional requirements are related to functionality, right? They will just check if the password characters are between 8 to 16. Password has alphanumeric characters or not. Okay. If the page is loading successfully or not. If the if the user has credit card or not. If the user has debit card or not. Okay. If there is enough amount or not. So all these things they'll check. But what are non-functional requirements? If the page is loading quickly or not. The page is loading within 5 seconds, or is it taking 10 seconds? That is a non-functional requirement, right? And with 100 users or 200 users or 1000 users, how the system is behaving. That is another non-functional. While we are doing a test with 1000 users, how many transactions are we achieving? Are we achieving the right number of transactions? For example, in production, if we are, if we between 9 and 10, if there are 1000 users for any banking application, say ICICI bank application, so we need to do test with 1000 users for 1 hour. So how many transactions will happen in production? How many account creations, how many bill payments, how many fund transfers will happen in that 1 hour? That many transactions we need to achieve our test, right? That is one more enough. So while we are doing this test, we have to monitor our servers also, CPU, memory of our application, right? So that CPU and memory utilization should not cross 75%. That is one more enough. So all these are non-functional requirements, right? These are not functional requirements. These are non-functional. These things we need to gather in the first stage. How do we gather in the first stage? We have business requirement documents, technical specification documents. There we can see non-functional requirements somewhere that document. There they will list out all the non-functional requirements. We need to note down them. Based on those non-functional requirements, we need to prepare something called test strategy in the second stage. And what is this test strategy or test plan? This is nothing but a documentation. Okay. So this is the test strategy document, sample test strategy document, and the contents of the performance test strategy document are these things. First of all, introduction will be there, project introduction, what you are doing. Okay. For example, if you are doing testing for ICICI Bank online banking application, you have to mention that introduction here. Okay. You have to give an overview of this, overview of the application. And after this, you will have your application architecture. So what is application architecture? As a performance tester, you need to understand little about application architecture also. What is application architecture? Anyone? Yes. Okay, it's not completely, it's not about coding, it's about the servers architecture, right? For any application, we'll have application servers, database servers, backend servers, right? Front-end servers, all these things will be there, right? How that architecture is designed, you need to understand. You need to understand those things, right? Yes, yes. So for example, the application which I am working, I'll give you example of the application which I am working. So I am working for a banking application for which I will do performance testing for internet banking and mobile banking, both. Okay. And this particular application has an application architecture, right? Okay. All internet banking users will go through one set of servers. All mobile banking users will go through another set of servers. Okay. This has one architecture, this has one architecture, and this both will have connectivity. All those things will be there. Okay. First of all, users should log in first, right? So while they are logging in, there is something called authentication server. Okay. A separate authentication server will be there for every application, because every application has a login, right? Okay. They have this authentication server, single authentication server will be there. All the users in internet banking and mobile banking should hit this authentication server first, and from there it will go to actual application servers. Okay. If it is internet banking, it will go to this internet banking related application server. If it's mobile banking, it go to the mobile banking related application server, and this connects to database. Okay. Okay. You are doing bill payments, right? As part of this banking application, you have fund transfers and also bill payments. What kind of bill payments you will do? Electricity. Okay. If you are doing electricity, you are paying bill to electricity department. Is it part of your application or external? Is it an external system or part of your application? Electricity. Separate application. So this application will again connect to this electricity related server, right? External servers. So these external server includes electricity department application servers will be there, and if you are paying gas bill, gas related applications will be there, and if you are recharging your mobile through your bank, it connects to Airtel servers or Vodafone servers, right? And if you are buying a movie ticket from your bank, it connects to that book my show or whatever it is, to that particular theater, right? So those external servers also will be connected from your application through something called API calls, right? To something called API calls. I'll talk about this API calls later. So you might get these requirements also. They might ask you to do performance testing for these API calls, and you don't know what these API calls do. So whenever there are external systems, your only single application is connecting to different applications when you are paying a bill. For example, you are booking a, for example, if you are doing performance testing for Make My Trip, where you book flight tickets. Okay. So I want to go from Delhi to Hyderabad, and I will search. I will click on search. And how many search results it returned? See, AirAsia. It returned AirAsia. There is some slots in AirAsia. Fly Indigo. Okay. Air India, SpiceJet. So how it generated these many airline slots? Because this Make My Trip is connecting to different applications. Like it is connecting to AirAsia application, it is connecting to Fly Indigo application. How it is connecting to these many applications? Through API calls. So these kind of API calls, through backend API calls, this connectivity will happen. So these kind of testings also you might be doing in your projects as part of performance testing. That thing also I'm going to cover when I am covering the actual tool. Okay. So all this comes under your application architecture, right? Wherever you have this API calls, again, it connects to database, right? So all these things, this application architecture, you need to design your application architecture. You need to explain like this application architecture, you don't need to write anything. You just need to contact your infrastructure team or development team. From there, there will be some application architecture diagram that you need to put here. That's it. Okay. But what I'm saying here is, before you do performance testing, you should try to understand your application architecture. Then only, without understanding application architecture, also you can you can do performance testing. But why you are doing performance testing? For what purpose you are doing performance? If you don't know the connectivity, backend servers connectivity, so whenever an issue comes, you don't know while execution if some slowness is coming. Okay, if there is some slowness, if the response times are high, for example, during bill payments, the response times are high. Where exactly the issue is? How do you know? If the issue is with web server, application server, issue can be with your downstream systems. While you are doing gas bill, if there is slowness in performance testing while you are doing a gas bill, issue can be with that gas related server also, right? So how do you know that? By understanding this, first of all, you need to understand the application architecture. Then only you can identify where the issue is, right? So issue can be anywhere, right? So that is why understanding your application architecture is very important. And the next thing, what you need to write in your test strategy document is scope. The in scope items and out of scope items, right? What are in scope items? Whatever you are going to test in performance testing are in scope, and whatever you are not testing is out of scope, right? What you are testing as part of performance testing, you are doing a load test, you are doing stress test, endurance test, and if yes, spike test based on requirement. And if it is an existing application already production, if your application is already in production, you can do a baseline test. See, what is a baseline test? Generally, what will happen? For example, you have you are testing for ICICI Bank application. They are upgrading the version from old version to new version. They are upgrading the version of your ICICI Bank from old to new, or they are migrating you the ICICI Bank's database from Oracle to Postgres. Anything that is one single release, right? Whenever they are doing that migration, as part of that, you need to do performance testing, because that is a release. They are migrating database, or they are changing the version of your application. They are doing some coding. There are some code changes. Okay, they will deploy that code. Okay, before that code go to production, you have to do performance testing, right? So after code changes, you have to do performance testing. But before code changes also, you have to do performance testing. Why? Because you have to compare the response times before your code changes and after your code changes, right? So doing a testing before the code changes is called a baseline test. So always you have to do this baseline test. Okay, before your developer deploy any code onto your application, do one baseline test and take those results. And after deployment, you have to do another test, that is load test. So you have to compare your baseline test with your load test. Why do you need to compare your baseline test with load test? Because baseline test, you conducted baseline test before your deployment. Load test you conducted after your deployment. You are comparing and checking if there are any performance related issues or not. If the results are same, well and good. You can say yes, you can go ahead with your production. No problem. There are no issues in performance test. So your coding is good. I mean, there are no issues with your deployment. All the coding part is good. But if there are any issues in this response time comparison, if your baseline response times are better than your actual load test response time, then there is an issue. You need to identify what that issue is. You need to monitor. But if your baseline response times are not, like if your actual load test response times are better than baseline, then no issue. It is well and good. Okay. So that is why you always have to do baseline load test. So baseline load test, when you need to do, you have to do your baseline load test before any deployment, before any changes, right? So for example, recently in our project, again I'm taking my project example. Okay, for a particular application, okay, for my banking application, there was a database migration. Our banking application has Oracle database. They want to migrate that Oracle database to PostgreSQL, which is a different database. Okay, so what I did before migration, I have conducted one performance, and after that they migrated. I have conducted another test. Now what I have to do? Compare these two tests and see if there are any changes in response times. That is what I did. So same thing you have to do in your projects, right? So this baseline testing is very important. As part of demo, I have covered different types of performance: load test, stress test, endurance test. But this particular baseline test is also very important. Baseline test is not a separate test; it is also a load test. But you do this baseline test before any deployments or before any changes to the application. Okay. And one more thing, what you need to understand is you might be having monthly releases in your project. Every month you need to do performance test. So what you need to do, whenever you are doing first performance test, you consider that first performance test as baseline test. Okay. From next month onwards, for every month releases, you will do performance first test for second month. You will do load test for second month. With which results you will compare that particular load test? First month results. Third month, there will be another deployment. With which results you will compare that? Second one, second month results. Not about better and all. You have to compare with second month. Fourth month, the previous month. Third month results. So that is how you need to compare your results always. So test approach. When I'm saying test approach here, whatever I explained you now, how you are doing your load test. What is your approach? What is your test approach? What is your test approach? How do you start with performance test? I explained you yesterday and day before yesterday, right? What do you write in this test approach? What will be our performance test approach? How do you start a performance test when a new project comes? How do you start? Correct. Requirement gathering. You will gather non-functional requirements, and after that, what you will do? We'll take NFRs. After that, test plan. Test plan. Though this is test plan, you have to write your approach here. That we will prepare this test plan. Okay. Okay. Next step, we'll do scripting and execution. In execution also, you need to mention detailedly that we will do baseline test. After that, we will do load test. We'll compare the results. And after that, we will do endurance. Make sure there are no memory leaks. And if requirement basis on time basis, we'll do stress tests. Okay. Those things you need to mention in test approach. Okay. And test types. As I mentioned, whatever tests you are doing, baseline test, load test, endurance test, all these tests you need to mention. Okay. Test deliverables. What are these test deliverables? As part of performance test, from starting to ending, you are preparing few documents and all, right? Like test strategy, test plan. After execution, you will share test results. All these are test deliverables. After monitoring, you will share few results. All these are test deliverables. Those kinds of deliverables you need to mention here, that we are going to deliver these kind of documents during your testing. Okay. Environment. So this is also very important. All these performance tests, where are we going to conduct this performance? In NFT environment, right? In what is NFT environment? It is non-functional test environment. Where does this functional testing will happen? UAT, right? And developers will do their coding in dev environment. And SIT and UAT testings will happen. And there will be one more environment called NFT. In few companies, they call it NFT. In few companies, they'll call it performance test environment. In some companies, what will happen? There won't be any environment also. They'll ask you to do performance testing on UAT only. Okay. So, but it is always recommended that performance testing should have a separate environment. Why? Why should we have a separate environment? Why can't we do our testing on UAT? Okay. CPU utilization or configurations. Why can't we test our load test on UAT or SIT? Because SIT and UAT we do functional testing. Do you need high-end configurations for functional testing? With one user only you'll do functional testing. And main goal of your functional test is, what is the main goal of your functional test? Correct. You are not worried about performance. So why do you need high-end configurations for that? So production like configurations are not needed in SIT and UAT. Okay. So they will not give you production like CPU and production like RAM in SIT and UAT. If production has 64 GB RAM, in SIT and UAT you will see only 16 GB or something, because they are not worried about performance. Okay. If production has like 16 core CPU, in SIT and UAT you might be having dual core or 4 core CPU, because they are not worried about performance. They test only functionality. And what will happen if you do your performance test in SIT and UAT? Can you do performance? Results will not be accurate, right? We cannot, the results won't be accurate because you are doing your performance testing in very low end configuration. You have to do your performance testing with production like environment. Production like environment means you should be having same configurations in the environment, same like production. If production has 64 GB RAM, this should be having 64 GB RAM. Okay. If production has like 16 core CPU, your environment where you are doing performance testing should have 16 core CPU. Okay. So that is why it is always recommended to have a different or separate test environment. We call it NFT or performance test environment, where we have production like configurations. There only you have to do your performance. But nowadays that is not happening. Though we, for example, in again I'll take my application example. We have separate NFT environment, but that environment will be used by functional testers also. So it is always recommended that your performance test environment should not be used by anyone. Only that should be used only for performance testing. But in your companies, that might not happen. In some companies, they'll follow that. Some companies, they'll not follow that. In my company, they are not following. But you have to deal with that. Okay. But configuration wise, it should be similar to production. And according to performance test standards, it should be at least 60% to production. Okay, at least 60%. Because no one will give you similar configuration of production in a test environment. Why they will not give? Correct. Cost. How they can give 64 GB RAM and 16 core CPU and all that in test environment? Because that is high cost for them, right? So they will not give you, but at least 60% of your production configuration should be there in your NFT environment. That means if you have 64 GB RAM in production, you should at least have 42 GB RAM or something in your performance test environment. Same case with CPU also. Okay, that is your standard, right? So this is a most important interview question. That's the reason I'm explaining you in detail. So definitely in most interviews, they'll ask you that how how is your performance test environment configured? Is it similar to your production? If it is not similar to your production, how will you justify that to your client? How will you justify your performance test results to your client? You have to tell that according to performance test standards, industry standards, your performance test environment configuration should at least be 60%. It should not be less than that. It can be more than that. That is one thing. And when it comes to justification, if your results are performing well with 60% configurations, then it will definitely perform well in production. That is my judgment. Okay. Next, tools. Again, as part of this performance testing, stage 1 to stage 6, requirement gathering, all these things you are doing, right? What tools are you using during this phase? One tool what you are using is Jmeter, where you are using in third stage, design stage, right? Another tool, if you are using load runner, then you have to mention load runner here, right? You are using Jmeter here, you have to mention Jmeter. Apart from testing tools, what else you will use? If you are using Jira for defect management, you have to mention that. So whatever tools for monitoring, you might be using App Dynamics or any monitoring tools. You have to mention that. Okay. So all that you have to mention, whatever tools you are using. Okay. And resources are you, right? Like resources, who is your manager, who's the test lead of this project, who are working on scripting, execution, analysis, all that you have to mention here. Okay. And entry and exit criteria. What is entry criteria? For example, I have written here, application should be functionally stable before deploying the build for performance system, right? Application should be functionally stable. That is your entry criteria. If this is not functionally working well, then there is no point in running your performance test, right? All the major defects are closed and most of the SLAs are met after your performance test. After your performance test, what is your exit criteria? SLAs are met, right? You have to make sure that all the SLAs are met. That's where your exit criteria comes. Once this is done, your testing is completed. That's what you have to mention in exit criteria. Risks and mitigations. What are these risks and mitigations? One of the risks is, as I mentioned earlier, that environment configuration should be similar to production or at least 60%. If it is less than 60%, that is a risk. You have to mention that. You have to mention that in this document. Okay. And you have to mention that application performance test environment configurations are less than 60% of the production. So there can be variation in the performance test results. That is a risk. And what is the mitigation? Mitigation is nothing but there should be increase in configuration. At least the configuration should be 60% so that we can conduct a good performance test on that. So these are the contents you have in your performance test strategy document. And you have some other document called performance test plan. You will have same contents, but one important thing what you have in performance test plan is workload mix. What is this workload mix? I'll come to that. Okay. And one more thing what you have additional in performance test plan is the execution cycles. How many execution cycles you do? So you have to mention here, I will do one baseline test and I will do one load test. If the results are not good, then I will do some monitoring. I'll try to understand where the performance bottlenecks are there. I will discuss with my developers, database team, infrastructure team, and they will do fixes. Fixing is not your part. They will do fixes. And after that, what you need to do after fixing, you have to do another load test. That is cycle 2. So these things you need to mention here. And after that, at the end, you need to do endurance tests. All these performance tests, execution cycles, yes. Why baseline test after fixes? No, baseline test, your load test itself will be considered as baseline test for next release, right? Correct? Now this is a load test now. But in next release, that load test will become a baseline test. Okay. And performance test metrics. That means CPU, memory utilization, CPU utilization, all that you will monitor, right? You have to mention that. And same thing, right? Test deliverables, defect management, how you'll do. Generally, as a performance test, you don't raise defects. You'll, as in release basis, in monthly release base, you don't have that much time to raise defects and all, right? You can ignore that. So all these things, again, you need to mention. But one main thing here is workload modeling. What is this workload modeling? Why do you do workload modeling? So before you understand this workload modeling, you have to understand the difference between think time and pacing. What is this difference between think time and pacing? This is one important question. What do you get for 3+ years experience? So what is think time and what is pacing? Okay, think time, pacing. Okay, think time and pacing are the timings which you will give inside your Jmeter script or a load runner script. Any script, any performance script, you have to give think time and pacing. But what is the difference? Think time is nothing but the time taken between the transactions, and pacing is nothing but the time taken between the iterations. Okay, as a definition, this is what you have to say. But I will explain you what are transactions, what are iterations, why do you give think time and why do you give pacing, that you need to know, right? So why do you give think time and what are transactions? When I say transactions, you know what are transactions. For example, you are doing performance testing for fund transfer, right? What are transactions here? Launch is one transaction, login is one transaction, and click fund transfer menu is one transaction. You will select from account to account and you will give amount, and what you will click on, you will click on next. This is one transaction. Okay, these are not transactions, don't get confused. Clicking, giving from account, giving to account are not transactions. Why? Because your page is not loading when you are doing this. You are just selecting a drop down and you are selecting from account and to account. Your page is not loading. Where exactly your page is loading? After clicking on next. So whenever your page is loading, you have to consider that as a single transaction. This is one transaction, and after clicking on next, you might get an OTP and you have to enter OTP and submit. This is one transaction, and finally your fund transfer is successful, and finally log off. How many transactions you have in this? This entire thing is a fund transfer script. Okay, in this particular script, how many transactions you have? 6 transactions, right? Think about real time. For example, in real time, and user is doing fund transfer, right? Like for example, you are doing fund transfer in ICICI Bank application. You will log in, you will launch the screen, you will log in. Okay, you will click on fund transfer menu. Okay, and you will give from account to account, you will select amount, and again you will click on next. Between these each transactions, are you going to take some time or no? Or you are not a robot, right? You will not just launch, login, click fund transfer menu. You are giving from account to account very quickly, and you'll not do everything in within seconds, right? You'll take some time. That is called user time, right? Between launch and login, you'll take some time, right? Because before login, what you are doing? You are giving your user ID, password, and after that only you are clicking on login button, right? That means you are taking few seconds time. That time is called think time. So here you will have think time. And after login, so you will see where this fund transfer menu is, and you will click there, right? Again, you are taking some time. Again, think time, right? And after that, you are again selecting from account to account to account. Again, you are entering the amount. At that time, your page is not loading. You're just entering something. Okay, that also you are taking time there. You have to give this think time. So that is why between every transaction you have to give think time, because in real time users will give think time. Users will wait before clicking on each and every transaction. Users will take their own time to click on each and every transaction, right? So the main agenda or main motive of performance testing is to replicate the real-time scenario. If we don't give think time, we are not replicating the real user scenario. Real users will wait for some time between the transactions. So in order to replicate that, you have to give this think time in between. Like you have to give 5 seconds, 4 seconds, something you have to give in between. So that is called think time. So think time is the time taken between the transactions, right? That is think time. Now let us come to pacing.
Sir,
Yes.
Srinivas here.
Yes.
You told that think time is a time between transactions.
Correct.
So transaction means if it is going to other page, that is one transaction, right?
Correct.
But for example, I'm currently working on the mortgage application. For example, I entered the check details and I will click on submit button. It will get the pop-up and I will click on OK and it will be on same page. Can we consider this as one transaction or we have to not consider as transaction?
You are giving check details, right?
Yes, right.
While you are giving check details, your page is not loading, right?
Yeah, it will be in same page. It is not loading.
It is not loading, but you are giving check details and you are taking few seconds time to give those check details.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
That time is called think time. You have to give that particular time in your script.
Means it is not in, it will be in same page, right? In the same page, we will get the pop-up. Can we consider that one is also one transaction?
Yes, that is a transaction because your pop-up is generating, right?
Yes, right.
That is a transaction.
Okay. Again, clicking on OK, and it will be in same page. That is also one transaction.
Yes, definitely that is also a transaction. Because though it is a pop-up, it is a transaction because you are clicking on OK. After giving check details, there is a pop-up coming. How a pop-up is coming? It is contacting the server, and from there your pop-up is coming, right?
Yes, right.
So that is a single transaction.
Okay.
But you are entering your check details. That time nothing is happening. You are just entering your check details. So you have to give some think time there, and after that you are giving think time to enter your check details. Because in real time, while entering your check details, you're taking some time. So you have to give that time in your script also. That is why we are giving the time.
Okay.
So you have to, yeah. So here in your scenario, you have to give think time for entering check details, right?
Okay, yeah.
Details, and after that, a pop-up comes. So after entering check details, you will click on some button and a pop-up comes. So this is a transaction. Click on that button and pop-up. This is a transaction.
Okay.
But before that, you are giving your check details. So you have to give think time here. And after that, you are clicking on OK, right?
Yes.
So you are moving your cursor to click on OK, right? You are taking at least 1 second or couple of seconds time, right?
Yes.
So you have to give think time again. And only after that, you have to click on OK. Okay. So you have to give this think time in between. So what will happen if you don't give this think time? So for example, you didn't give this think time, click on button, pop up, and after that, immediately without waiting a single microsecond time also, it will click on OK. But do you do that in real time? Without waiting even a microsecond time, will you click on? Can you click on OK?
No.
At least you will move your cursor and go and click on OK, right?
Yes.
So that is why you are a human. We are humans. We'll take some time between each and every transaction. But Jmeter is not a human. It is a tool. It is a robot. So if you don't give a think time, what will happen? What will happen if you don't give a think time? For example, for this particular fund transfer script launch, it will not wait even a microsecond time to click on login.
Okay.
Because you have automated your username and password in your script. So it will not enter your username and password like a human. It will just click on the sign in page immediately after login within microsecond time.
Okay.
But here, if you don't give the think time, are you replicating the real human scenario? No.
No.
So our main agenda in performance testing is to replicate the real world scenario, real human or real user scenario. So if you want to replicate that, you have to give think time between your transactions, right?
Okay. Right. Means after entering the check details only, we have to give the think time, or for every field, for example, have to enter the trustee name. After that, have to enter the check date. So between the fields also, we have to give the somewhat think time.
Entering, sorry, can you
When
come?
we are entering the check details, first I have to give the name, trustee name. After that, I have to enter the check date. In that way, we have to enter all the fields. So between the fields also, we have to give the think time, or after entering the fields and clicking on save button, between that we have to give the think time.
Clicking on save button, that is what, see, we are giving think time for entering the details, right? While entering the details, you are taking time, right?
Yes. Yes.
While selecting everything, entering your details and all, you are taking time. That
Yes.
you have to give as a think time.
Okay.
Okay, and after that you are clicking on some
Save
button.
button.
That
Yeah.
is a transaction.
Yes.
Okay. You got it?
Yes. Yeah. Got it. Yeah.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, loading a page is considered as a transaction, one transaction.
Correct.
Like login and going to the home page.
Correct.
And this think time is giving the details to the field. That is the think time. I'm not getting exactly that.
I will tell you.
Because I understand the transaction. It is a load between one page to one page. We'll consider one transaction.
I will tell you practically by going to your website.
Okay.
I want to do performance testing for this particular application. Okay. So for registration, I want to do performance testing, right? So for that, I will click on register. Okay. See, I have to click on register now, right? So for that, what I need to do? I need to enter these fields, right? How long I am taking to enter these fields? Am I taking some time? How much time? How much time it considered till now? $10 seconds already, 15 seconds almost now, correct? Almost it took 20 seconds now. Still I am filling the form. Still I am filling the form, and now I am clicking on register now. Okay, successfully registered. So how long I took to fill the form? Around 20 seconds, right?
20, yes.
You have to give that as a think time in your script. That's what I'm saying. Because you took some time to fill the form. If you don't give this as a think time, what will happen? Because you are doing your scripting and execution in which tool? In a tool called Jmeter, right? So you will write your script. For example, if you are doing performance testing for register, you will record your script and you will run that particular script, right? If you don't give think time, it will click on register now button immediately without waiting. But how long I took to click on register? Almost 20 seconds to fill the form, right? But Jmeter will not take that time. It will click immediately. Jmeter is a tool. It will not keep on filling this one by one, right? I will give some parameters. Accordingly, it will take the parameters within microseconds. It will click on register. You're getting my point? For example, I'm logging in. Okay. For logging in also, I clicked on login. For logging in also, I'm taking some time, right? I'm giving my username, password. So how long I took to click on login? I took at least 3 to 4 seconds, right? So you have to give that 3 to 4 seconds in your script. That's what I'm saying. Simple. Wherever you are filling a form, wherever you are taking time to click on any button in your screen, those things you need to give as a think time. So when I go to the scripting part, the tool, you will understand what I'm saying. Okay, you're getting my point here. So that is called think time. Think time is the one which you give between the transactions. But what is pacing? Is the time which you give between the iterations. What is iteration? What is iteration? Time taken between launch to log off. From launch till log off is a single iteration. And what is transaction? This is a single transaction. Launch is a single transaction. Login is one transaction. Click fund transfer menu is one transaction. This is one transaction. So including everything from launch to log off, you have completed one fund transfer flow. You have started with launch, clicked on login, clicked on fund transfer menu, you gave amount, submit, you got OTP, again entered OTP, submit. Okay, successful fund transfer happened, and finally you clicked on log off. From launch till until log off, it is one iteration. So you will give your pacing. What is your pacing? Your pacing is from launch to log off is called one iteration. And where do you give pacing? You will give pacing between your iterations. And why do you give pacing between your iterations? Okay, for example, let us go back to our NFRs. According to our NFRs, they will say fund transfer. What are your NFRs? Like as part of your NFRs, you will get transaction requirement also. You have to achieve, they'll say you have to achieve 500 fund transfers in 1 hour. That means during your load test, you have to achieve 500 fund transfers, and you have how many users for fund transfer you need to take? 50 users, right? Okay. Fine. So you are running your test with how many users now? 50 users. Okay. And you are running your script. What is your script here? This one. Okay. By completing one iteration, how many fund transfers you will complete? You are running your test with 50 users. You have completed one iteration. What is it about iteration? From launch to log off is one iteration, right? How many fund transfers you will complete by running one iteration? One transaction, but you are running your test with how many users? How many you will complete? How many fund transfers you will complete? 50. So you are running your test with 50 users. Don't get confused. You are running your test with 50 users. So with 50 users, it will run your test at same time. Okay, it is point about performance testing, right? You are running your fund transfer script with 50 users. That means all 50 users will run at same time. That means all 50 users will complete one iteration, and it will complete how many fund transfers? 50 fund transfers. But what is your target? 500. How much time do you think to take for one iteration to complete? From launch to log off, how much time it will take for one iteration?
Less than 1 minute.
Maybe less than 1 minute also, right? Maybe 2 to 3 minutes. Okay. Okay. Just consider 2 minutes. Okay. And what is your test duration here? You are doing a load test. What is your test duration here? For a load test, what is the test duration? 1 hour, right? Okay. So 1 hour you are doing 50 users with 50 users. You started your test. You completed one iteration. It completed 50 fund transfers within 2 minutes. Okay. And after that, after completing one iteration, again it will go back, right? Again, 50. How many fund transfers again? 50. fund transfers. How many minutes? 2 minutes. This time, how much it completed? 50 plus 50, 100. So how many iterations it will take to complete to reach your target? How many iterations it will take to reach your target? 10 iterations. That means how many minutes?
20.
20 minutes. What is your test duration? 1 hour. You completed your test in 20 minutes. Remaining time 40 minutes. That is your pacing. That's it. So now tell me why you are giving pacing. You tell me the definition. You know, I explained you what is pacing. Now you tell me the definition. Why are we giving pacing? Anyone?
We have to give the pacing between the iterations so that we'll get that time, how much time it is taking.
Okay. Except Uday. Anyone in this class? Can someone tell me the definition of pacing? Definition and actual meaning of pacing. Why we are doing pacing now? What is the target? What is our target? You know why we are giving think time? Why we are giving think time? Because user is taking some time between iterations, between transactions. That is why we are giving think time. Why we are giving pacing? I know we are giving pacing between iterations. Okay. But what is the logic behind it? Why? Why are we giving pacing between iterations? Why are we giving pacing? Just take this example. What is our target here? 500.
To know the time exactly how much time it is taking between the iterations.
Okay, we'll know the time. Okay. Still, I need the right answer. Okay, just try to understand again. Here, our target is what? 500 transactions. That means 500 fund transfers should happen. With how many users? 50 users, right? Started our test with 50 users. Within 2 minutes, 50 fund transfers happen. And again 50. Within 2 minutes, 50 fund transfers. Like that, within 20 minutes, we are achieving 500. But what is our test duration? 1 hour. According to our NFRs, our target is 500. And we achieved our target within 20 minutes, right? But what are we going to do the remaining time? Remaining 40 minutes is there, right? Are we going to sit idle? Are we going to sit idle without doing anything? That is not the right way to do your load test, right? So we have to give this 40 minutes between your iterations. That means you have to give your 40 minutes between your iterations. That means 5 minutes here. Okay. Again, 5 minutes here. Sorry. 5 minutes here. You're getting me? So you have to divide this time and give between your iterations. Why are we doing this? Why can't we, instead of this, why can't we wait for 40 minutes at the end continuously? I'll complete my test within 20 minutes and I will not do anything. I'll just wait for 40 minutes. Why can't we do this? Why only this I have to do? Why can't we wait for 40 minutes at the end? Because our load test duration is 1 hour, right? So our load test should happen continuously in this 1 hour. Okay. It is not that we have to do load test for only 20 minutes. 20 minutes, I have reached my target 500 within 20 minutes, and remaining 40 minutes, I will sit idle without doing anything. That is not the right way, right? So your load test should be in such a way that you have to conduct your load should be there throughout your 1 hour duration. That means how your load should be there throughout your 1 hour duration, and how do you achieve your target by running your load test in 1 hour continuously like this, right? Run 50, run with 50 users. You are achieving 50 fund transfers within 2 minutes. And after that, you will have to wait for 5 minutes. And after that, again 50. Again, you will achieve 50 fund transfers within 2 minutes. Again, wait for 5 minutes. And after that, again 50. Again, within 2 minutes, you will achieve. Again, wait for 5 minutes. Like that, 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus, you will run this for how many iterations? Total 10, right? So if you count, you'll reach this 40 minutes target. So that is why I said initially the definition of pacing is the time taken between the iterations. Are we taking time between the iterations now? Yes, we are waiting for 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes between the iterations. So the main target of your pacing is to achieve the required transactions in 1 hour. If you don't give this pacing, what will happen? You will achieve if you don't give this pacing, if you don't give pacing at all, what will happen? It will execute. It will execute in 20 minutes. It will achieve 500 in 20 minutes. We have to wait 40 minutes. Just put it aside. If you don't give pacing at all, what will happen is it will reach your target within 20 minutes, and it will try to execute the remaining 40 minutes also, and it will achieve around 1,500 fund transfer. But what is your target? 500. You should not achieve more and you should not achieve less. You should achieve only 500. Okay. You are not doing stress tested. If you are doing stress test, then you can achieve 1,500 or 1,000. That is good. But you are doing load test. So you have to achieve your production transactions. In your production in real time, only 500 fund transfers are happening within 1 hour. So in order to achieve that, you have to give this pacing in between. If you don't give pacing, the load test will run for total 1 hour. Within 20 minutes, it will achieve its target, but it will keep on running for remaining 40 minutes also, and it will achieve more number of fund transfers. That is not what you want. You have to achieve only 500. That is the reason we are giving this, we are calculating this pacing and giving it between the iterations. Okay. Go home and try to think about different pacing, different scenarios like this. And tomorrow I will explain you how to calculate this pacing. It is not that you will just give whatever time you want here, right? So you need some calculations for pacing. I will take the same OLF, OLX, NFRs and take the same scenarios, and based on this admin, seller, buyer, call center, I will prepare this workload model. The main agenda of this workload model is to calculate pacing. Okay. So you will get this as an interview question, that have you created workload model? Why do you create workload model? Then you have to tell to calculate pacing, and they'll ask you what is pacing. Then you have to tell pacing is the time between the iterations, and they might ask you again, why do you give pacing? You have to give this example. If I want to achieve 500 fund transfers with 50 users, I will achieve that within 20 minutes, and the remaining 40 minutes time I have to give as a pacing between each and every iteration to achieve my target. Okay. Because my recent batch 1 student got this interview question. She just gave she just gave definition, but you have to give example also, because they'll ask you with example. Okay, so you have to give such examples. Then only they'll come to know that you know what is pacing. That they'll believe that you have calculated pacing. Okay, and this calculation formula and all, and the logic behind formula. When I am giving formula here, I am not going to explain only formula. I'll not ask you to by heart formulas. I will explain you the logic. Why are we giving this formulas for pacing? I am going to explain you that tomorrow. So for admin user, what is the pacing? For sellers, what is the pacing? For buyers, For call centers, what is the pacing? Because you need to achieve this many transactions for each and every scenario. You have to achieve 200 transactions for admin, right? Yesterday we discussed. So in order to achieve 200 transactions with 4 users, there should be some pacing, right? So that pacing calculations, I will explain you tomorrow. Okay. Is it clear? Any doubts till this point? So after pacing, we can go to the tool. From day after tomorrow onwards, we will start with the tool installation, Jmeter tool installation. Okay. We'll be done with stage 1 and stage 2 tomorrow. We'll complete stage 2 also tomorrow. So we can start with the tooling part, which is stage 3. Okay. Right. Bye. Let's meet tomorrow, same time. Okay.